All right, I don't know what time it is on your clock, but I know what I'm getting ready for. It is time for the Professional CISO Podcast with David Malicoat.
Welcome, one and all, to the Professional CISO Podcast. I'm your host, David Malicoat. This show is an exploration of the topics necessary to professionalize the role of the CISO. All right, gang, special episode today. We have an interview with 3 security executives. So this is very, very special in that it's our first panel. Usually it's been a one-on-one thing. Now we're going panel. I'll blame that on one of these folks here. I'll let you know in a second. All right, so before we get started, 12th Annual North Texas ISSA Cybersecurity Conference coming up September 6th. 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. It's at the Plano Event Center. We are going to be there, and I say we as in the podcast. I don't know about these folks. Maybe they will. Probably. In the end, we're going to be recording during the day. I think we're going to pull some of the speakers after they come off stage or before they go on stage. Drop by. Come see us. I don't know. Maybe we'll put you in the chair. Maybe we'll have a nice little short 5-minute conversation about what you're seeing as far as the conference goes. But more information's coming. We'll put a link in the show notes over to the North Texas. We'll put a link in the show notes to the North Texas ISSA website on the event side. Also, I want to talk a little bit about please like, follow, share. So not a call for desperation or anything like that. We've been getting a pretty steady uptick of likes and follows as we go along. We just want to get the word out there. Everything you do when it comes to this, it really helps us, helps us get that best content out to you. So if you're on Spotify or Apple, hit that follow. On YouTube, hit subscribe. Follow us on LinkedIn. Maybe share it with a colleague or two or somebody that you know. Friends, family, I don't know, dog, who knows. But in the end, get the word out there. We love to interact with folks out there on LinkedIn as well as other social media platforms. All right, so let's talk about being a professional CISO. In today's episode, our guests are Sailaja Kotra-Turner, Sonya Hammond, and Jessica Nemmers. Currently, Sailaja is the VP and CISO and Director of Infrastructure and Operations at Brown-Forman. Sonya is the CISO and VP of IT Architecture and Engineering at National Veterinary Associates. Jessica is the Field CISO at Flair Data Systems. Please join me in welcoming our esteemed panel. Ladies, thanks for being here.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
All right. So, already today, I have interviewed 2 of you individually with one to come. We agreed to do this panel in a way that we really are just going to go kind of right at the conversation that we had originally, which is women in cyber, okay? And I think we'll just jump off out of the gates and say, women can talk technical, right? This was one of the things you guys brought to me. We can talk technical on a subject matter. One of the trends that you guys are noticing is that, and I've noticed it too, by the way, that women and other diverse professionals are frequently the first ones picked for the diversity panel, right? But then that kind of rules you out for any other panels. So why is this problematic?
The reason it's problematic, David, is that it almost feels sometimes like the only thing that I am noticed for is the fact that I'm diverse. I'm there because I have something to offer, I hope. And being able to showcase my subject matter expertise makes it feel more like I'm one of the crowd. The other part of it is a lot of times, there is an underlying assumption, sometimes stated, sometimes not, that you're the diversity candidate. And by having diverse candidates only on these panels, on the diverse panels, it actually perpetuates that because you're not hearing the subject matter expertise that we bring to the table. We're only showing that diversity.
Love it. Ladies, anything to add?
Yeah, I agree. It's like we're pigeonholed, and it would help to demonstrate that we have some of the same technical expertise if there are technical topics that we would like to participate in. And we're trying to set an example for other women to demonstrate that, look, don't default to the diversity panel. Demonstrate the other knowledge that you bring to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. And For me, I feel torn because I do want to continue to promote diversity. I want to support DEI initiatives. But I think it was at one of our last conferences, Sonya and I were up on stage talking about consolidating the tech stack. And we came off, we're like, man, that was really nice to actually talk about our job and not just about the fact that we're women in cyber. So there's definitely got to be a balance. But I think there's often just not the opportunity to hear from us on being a CISO and CISO stuff opposed to just women in tech.
And we also lose some of the hidden diversity that people that don't look diverse can bring to the table as well by doing that. So it's the women, it's the, I'm going to say, different racial profiles that you see in diversity panels, but being white male does not mean you're not diverse.
Right.
And we lose that perspective by having only diverse people or visually diverse people on panels.
And I like where you're going with that, because the whole idea of the diversity is about interaction, is it not? So why would we not have the representation of all the diversity on the given panel?
Exactly.
Right? Versus, so if we were to look at this, like kind of pushing this forward in the future, like, we're not trying to be bean counters, right? What we're trying to do, and I think one of the things I've heard recently is the neurodiversity, right? Because, and it's different background, different experiences, different, and I think you were alluding to that. And do we have that opportunity to do that? How do we move that in that direction? If you know, being that we see the stated problem, how do we move in that direction?
I would almost sometimes say pick random people and let's learn about their diversity stance, what they've learned, how they got to where they were. It does not always have to be a woman speaking about how they got there. How about getting a guy of any color, honestly, talk about their journey? And or if you really want to have the same women conversation, how did they help women grow? And there's topics like that that they can definitely bring to the table.
And I think asking, like, guys, what you're doing to diversify your team or what you're doing within your organization to support these initiatives, I think it holds us all accountable. I feel like if it's always us on stage, it's up to us to create diversity. But it should be everyone's responsibility.
Totally agree.
I think we have to remove the stigma also that just because you may have a white male talking about their background and their path into cybersecurity, we need to remove the thought that that means a female or someone of color couldn't follow the same path. I mean, why couldn't they? They absolutely could.
One of the things I've really striven for on the show generally is to talk about the human story, right? And typically up to this point, it's been one-on-one. But the genesis of this panel, which I will leave to Jessica down because she poked me on the shoulder and at a recent event not too long ago and said, you haven't had any women on your show. I said, I totally agree with you. I have had a struggle trying to get women on my show. Not that I'm not open to it by any stretch. And I think I went out and kind of got one maybe the next week or whatever. And then obviously we put this together, which coming up, we will have 3 individual podcast episodes with these 3 individual women, as well as this panel. So we have 4 total. And that's not going to be it. Like, obviously, I look forward to you giving me more people, right? As well as any other, of my guests out there. That all being said, how do we break it, right? Because I think we are in this kind of rut when it comes to conferences or dinners or, whatever it looks like, is like, me as a white guy, do I feel like I have the power to come in and say, we need to mix this up, right? Or am I shy now because I'm afraid that the tortures are going to come for me because I'm trying to change things up? Does that make sense? What are your thoughts on that? Like, how do we break this mold that we're in, that we found ourselves in?
Forge ahead. I mean, shake it up. Part of being a woman in technology is learning to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I think same thing. people need to step outside of the comfort zone. Don't be afraid and say, let's do something a little different. Let's shake things up.
Yeah. A wine tasting every once in a while wouldn't be a bad thing. Now, everybody that knows me knows I'm a bourbon drinker. So I actually, for me, I like participating in kind of the typical CISO areas that are predominantly male. But yeah, I think kind of thinking outside the box and what can we do just from an event standpoint to be more inclusive.
Yeah, actually, I'll expand on that a little bit. So, cultural background here. I don't drink alcohol, and I'm vegetarian. And 99% of dinners and events that are set up are in steakhouses.
Yeah.
Yay, my top pick.
Yeah.
Could you exclude me more?
Right. So, again, I'm going there for the company, for the people.
Right.
So it's not that big a deal about what dinner is. But that does beg the question, does it have to be at a steakhouse and does it have to be a $120 meal?
Yeah.
There's so many other options.
I think somebody mentioned the spa day.
Yes.
Yes.
Instead of
You have some others as well. Like let's bring these out because I think we've hit a point now. Let's go. It's on the table. What else we got?
well,
Spa day.
I mean, let's go to the museum. I've had some excellent events in museums, and just the surroundings are so phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, anything that's for more diverse audiences.
Love it. Any other ideas?
Class.
I've actually done one of those. We've actually done one of those.
Hiking,
Love it.
mountain biking, anything like that that's more generic.
Right.
We could walk around or the other thing we could do is just tour different facilities. We have, whether it's an industry, somebody doing something, I'd love to see how a different office looks like or an industry looks like. And if you're working in a company that does like manufacturing, let's go take a look.
Well, and I love doing community service. So having an event and we all go to the food bank and prepare meals, and at the same time, you can still have conversation.
Yeah.
Right.
That's very much about cybersecurity. You can still share things and get to know each other.
And you also carve time, right, as well, right? Sure. Through the nature of doing what you're doing, whether it be volunteering or that activity, but then carve out time to where you're sit around and have that conversation about whatever the topic which should be. So I will take that away as well, because obviously I've been contemplating on because there's two conversations to be had. There's stuff that we can put in front of the camera, and there's conversations that we don't have in front of the camera. And I want to create that space for people to have those Chatham House rules, let's say, that I can take threads from, but not necessarily attribution, and be able to go and feed the conversation that we're driving here on the podcast. Because obviously each one of you, we need to push this thing forward, right? In whatever aspect. So love it. So specifically for conference organizers, so let's go a little, and we're not headhunting here or anything like that. I think one of the things I've heard recently is, and I think this is generally, conferences have kind of become also ran a little bit, right? It's kind of the same thing over and over again. And a lot of people talk about I love the networking aspect. I love talking to my peers. I love sharing those, happenstance hallway conversations. But a lot of the setup stuff is less than, or how do we get that, particularly in this realm, in this area, how do we get them to change? Because I think those are going to be the last to adapt, I think, right? I think the smaller ones or, people have more control. That's one thing, but you get a little bit more corporate, a little bigger. Their conferences are not going to want to change, right? Because it's too daring, maybe, right? It's always worked. It should always work. How do we get them out of it a little bit? How do we force their hand a little bit to get what we need out of this?
We never get fresh topics. I feel like just bringing individuals, speakers from other parts of the country, maybe other countries, to bring fresh topics. I think that's one thing I would recommend. I would also say not being so focused on, like when a vendor does a presentation, they're really working to sell and
not educate.
Yeah, bring your expertise and teach us, because we all need to stay abreast of new technology, new threats. Those are things that they can help educate us on.
So the reason we like that networking aspect is because we are sharing brain trust there. I have an idea, you have an idea, another person has an idea. We're sitting there and talking about all these ideas and sharing what we're doing. Because sometimes I might be looking at the same problem and not coming up with a solution. Somebody will look at that like, oh, that's easy. We can do this. So panels will help for that. Having people do the real talking, the people that are in the trenches, whether it's in a professional capability, whether it's in a leadership capability, letting them do more of the talking will really help. I understand vendors and sponsorships, and that's really important. But listening to the people that are doing the job and being able to share learnings is what will draw most people, I think.
And I think having small groups too, small, in the hotel rooms, the smaller conference rooms. And again, we love our vendors. We need all of you. We need your technology. But I think we need more opportunities at these events to speak among ourselves with true Chatham House rules and be able to take that time. We're taking off work. We're already there. Let's get into these rooms and help each other solve problems. But we really, a lot of the things that we're going to talk about, especially that pertain with our organizations, we can't have people that are not CISOs hearing.
Right.
So we need to have some more time to really do the work and solve the problems, confidentially.
And I will call out ourselves a little bit, us CISOs, and nobody's sitting on the stage, but I have seen where we lead different conversations and we're not necessarily prepared. So I think having the ability to come in and do it with the right intent and say, I'm prepared and I'm going to do this. It's one thing to be asked at the last second or something like that, but to make it meaningful for everybody else. And also, I think whether it's imposter syndrome or whatever, I have seen where they diminish their role in our industry, that they're considered one of the top, one of the thought leaders, and they don't necessarily embrace that. And I think you have to, right? If you've had tenure or multiple positions as a CISO, you are most likely now a thought leader, and you need to step forward as such. So just kind of my 2 cents on that.
I'm also, one of the things that I think conference builders could improve upon is I don't see the partnership between the CISOs and the vendors. I mean, one of the things that we could learn a lot from is taking a vendor tool or service, bring in a CISO that's implemented that service, and talk about lessons learned. Like, what were your obstacles? What things went well? What things failed miserably? I mean, those are places where we can all learn and apply that education. And we just don't see the CISOs and the vendors partnering at these conferences.
Love that. All right, we're going to shift into the next one. So, young women in cyber, okay? I think, and I know I try very hard to not put straw men in front of people, maybe in this case, straw women. But we can all agree there's not enough, right? I think we're all there. I think we as an industry recognize that. Is it a feeder problem? Is it a gatekeeping problem? Is it a case of young women not being interested in tech? Is it something else? Is it a combination of the above? So I'm going to kind of throw that grenade out on the floor, right? Talk to me about what you see as women in cyber. How do you handle it? I want to start with Jessica.
So I think we'll all agree the answer is yes to all those questions. I don't see as much. I don't see gatekeeping. So for me, I'll take that one off the table. I'm more like welcoming. So I would hate to hold like we should only have 5 female CISOs in this room of 200 people. I think there is a perception, and I continue to tell my story, my I story, ballerina turned CISO, to try to demonstrate that you don't have to be highly technical. And I think somebody keeps telling young women who are looking and thinking that looks interesting, and I heard it could be a lucrative career, it could be a way for me to support my family, but I have to immediately pass the CEH, Certified Ethical Hacker exam, and I've got to be highly technical. And I think that is where they start to shy away. And again, I'm kind of looking at women, in their 20s up to, 30, 35. and even those women who are looking to pivot in their career as well.
So I have an interesting story about the feeder issue that we talked about.
Okay.
I have a daughter. She's 16 now, and if she listens to this podcast, I'm in trouble. So this story happened a couple of years ago when she was in middle school. She was very interested in robotics. And one day she wanted to bring her robot home to continue working on it at home. I went to pick her up, and I was waiting by the main door. And she texts me, and she's like, "Oh, not by the main door. You need to pick me up by the side door." I'm like, "Why?" "I don't want anyone to see me with a robot and think that I'm a nerd." It starts early.
Social stigma.
Yeah. So there's social stigma with women being in technology, and there should not be. So I made it my mission for the next couple of years. And of course, the only person that did not listen was my daughter, which makes perfect sense. But I did make it my mission to talk to all her friends and say, why can you not be technical? Why can you not be in robotics? So it does start early, and that's where we need to start addressing it, is early. Start at the middle school, probably even earlier, and make it okay for girls to be the technical expert in the room. There's nothing wrong with that. And also, let's not dumb down technology. Again, another story at the high school level was, oh, we can attract more young women if we have a science class to teach them how to do makeup. I'm sorry. What makes you think women are only interested in makeup? Maybe, just maybe, they do want to make that volcano and see it flow over. You know, make it interesting. But don't dumb it down and make assumptions about what girls would be interested in. So that's the feeder issue that I'm seeing, is we need to start early and make it okay.
I do a lot of mentoring with young women. I actually find that a lot of the obstacle is within themselves. As women, you know, we're just wired a little bit different. And a lot of these young ladies are very uncomfortable with discomfort. So when they think about walking into a room that's all men, or, you know, 90% men, that is terrifying to them. They are not comfortable with that. So I think a lot of it is teaching young ladies to, you know, become comfortable with discomfort and to realize that they can bring equal knowledge and leadership to the table. They just have to believe in themselves and practice. You know, we all, like when we're getting ready and preparing for something, we practice. So they need to get comfortable practicing walking into, you know, a room full of men, or walking into a conversation where maybe they don't know the technical answer, and being practiced of how to respond when they do get asked a question they don't know the answer to. Men are much more confident and comfortable with those type of scenarios where women are not. So it's really, a lot of the obstacle is from within, and that's something that we need to coach young ladies on.
And I think that feeds the imposter syndrome too.
Yes.
Yeah.
One of the, I say, advantages, I guess, of having served in the military was it didn't matter who you were, where you came from, because we all came from everywhere. We had all the mixes. We had everything. And it didn't matter, because you're in there, you're doing a mission, and you knew that the person beside you had their key element to that. And I've had the advantage of taking that forward. I know a lot of veterans would be able to say the same thing. I think we, on this other side of men, generally, not necessarily just white men, but men can say, you need to open it up to have that ability to say, I don't care who's in the room. We are we, right? We are in this together. We are smarter than me, number one. I think that realization. And then the other is to say, we all bring value. Let's work together and do this, and be welcoming about it. I think that's another key, and not be so exclusive or cliquey or anything like that. So that's my learnings on that. And I'm not perfect every time, I will say that. I mean, I just sometimes like to be comfortable, right? But at the same time, you got to extend yourself. Right. Much like you're asking the young ladies to do, we need to do the same thing.
I would love to see more men just extend asking women in the room for their opinion. Yes. I think is when we're just more reserved and we don't put ourselves out there as quickly, and it can be very motivating if a gentleman in the room just says, "What's your opinion?"
Yeah, and again, that's where DEI. A lot of people think DEI has got to be this big banging on the chest. We refer to as bra burning, burning your bras like back in the 70s. But I always say I'm not a bra burner. I'm not. But it's just those little things. It's being aware and intentional that the women, especially if they are the minority or whoever the minority is in the room, is not going to be the first to speak up. And statistically, men interrupt women. There's a study on that. It's published on the web. It was many years ago. But knowing that, just being aware to say intentionally, I haven't heard from Sailaja. I haven't heard from Sonya. What are you thinking? What's on your mind? It makes a big difference.
Great. All right, so we'll switch to our last topic, right on time. So I love doing the right on time. This one's probably our most sensitive. So it'll be interesting to see where we land on this. Again, I think all this has been great so far. It's been meaningful. Hopefully everyone that listens to this is able to take away the intent, because I think we're here for the right purpose, right? So this is more of a personal experience that I brought to you as a women panel, which is within the last year, I've seen female cybersecurity leaders comment publicly on social media about the lack of women at specific functions, such as dinner or drinks or, just a gathering of any sort in a cybersecurity professional context. To balance that, me personally, I'm not saying it's wrong or different. This is my personal experience. I see what I consider statistically accurate, let's say, representation at most gatherings. Not everyone, but most gatherings. So we're really social in cybersecurity. We go out a lot, right? Yeah. We do a lot of things. Do you feel connected with either of these two sentiments? Like where does this land for you? Are you seeing where you feel like you're not involved or you're not invited to these things? Or is it a case of you feel represented? It's just a different idea. Like where we land on this?
I think I'd agree with you on the statistical representation. So there's only so many women, and so many women turn up at dinners and happy hours. We all have families and commitments, so that also limits how many that we can attend. So that does make it a little harder. The other thing that probably discourages women from attending some of these events is, what Sonya, you alluded to earlier, is a lot of times you walk in and you're the only female in a room of 20. I already face that all day. Do I really need to do it after hours too?
Right.
Yeah.
So, one thing that we've tried to do now is we usually check in with each other. Like, okay, you're going to this event, so at least we'll have one other person there, so we're feeling less alone. We need to probably extend that more and kind of encourage other women to, hey, I'm going, how about you go as well? Because there is a little bit of that safety in numbers thing that really helps.
I think gearing the event, again, just mixing it up a little bit to something that would be appealing to women. I mean, again, I'm vegetarian as well. I don't want a steak. And so I think building a comfort zone for women to come. I know we recently had an all-female event, a women in cyber, women in tech, and that was great. That was more of an opportunity for some of us to mentor younger women. So we were very intentional that it was exclusively for women. But yeah, I think just kind of mixing it up a little bit might draw more diversity into the event itself.
And I think one of the things that's really missing in my eyes, I see that the events are very, siloed in that you're not doing something where you interact with individuals. I mean, it's networking, but, at a networking event, you could choose to go and sit in the corner and never interact. I think choosing events where people As I mentioned, we took a group to the food bank, and so you're having to learn to work together. And so it takes out, are you female? Are you male? Are you, from a diverse background? It's just people working together and interacting. And I think finding events where there's more of that interaction versus, just sitting at a dinner table or, everybody hitting golf balls. Do things where people have to interact with each other.
Yeah, and I think the dinners are tough too because you're kind of pinned in. Like you are only going to be able to talk in here, that person, and maybe that person. So yeah, it's not really networking, and I know that's what it's meant to be, but you really, even when we all get together, it's hard to catch up because we're just kind of stuck at one seat.
The same thing, happy hours are actually worse. I know you're supposed to mingle, but it's so loud.
It is.
You can't hear yourself speak or think, much less have a conversation.
Yeah.
So that makes it really hard for us to have those conversations. I love the idea of some non-happy hour, non-dinner places to meet and do stuff that will get us talking.
Yeah.
Love it.
Let's get together and play poker, something like that.
Okay. Love it. Yeah. All right, I'm going to roll through some quick hits real quick. So really just kind of single sentence, maybe one or two. We gotta get it rolling. Okay. One piece of advice from each of you for women or anyone looking to get into cyber. Get into cyber.
These are actually two different things, sorry. Don't be afraid, but weigh your risks. Make sure you know what you're getting into, understand that it is a high-stress role, but don't shy away from it either because it's high stress. It's also a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Step out of your comfort zone. Part of being a CISO or being in cybersecurity is just learning to be comfortable with uncomfortable.
And understand what it is. A lot of people have an assumption of what cybersecurity is and what a cybersecurity career is going to look like, but dive in because there are a lot of aspects of it. There's a lot of disciplines. You really need to understand them before you decide to enter it.
I'm going to stay with you, Jessica.
Okay.
One piece of advice for current female practitioners looking to grow in cyber.
Voice your goals. We cannot read your mind. You need to speak up.
Lead by example.
I'll echo the lead by example. Stand up and be noticed. It's uncomfortable. You alluded to it when we started. We're introverts, a lot of us are, and it's terrifying to stand up and be seen. But we're also setting an example for other women. If I'm not standing up, other women are not seeing me.
Great. Sonya, one piece of advice for salespeople in cyber from a CISO's perspective.
You've got to change your sales approach and realize that as CISOs, we literally are bombarded a couple hundred attempts a day of salespeople trying to reach me. So use the opportunities of, going to a CISO breakfast or, CISO gatherings where you can mingle and get to know us that way versus emails and phone calls.
I've always worked with VARs. So work through your partners, work through the value-added resellers. As a CISO, and now I'm on the other side, as a field CISO who works for a VAR, but as a dedicated CISO, my VARs helped me kind of curate what I needed when. A lot of times I want to meet with you, but I don't need that technology at that time.
Right. So
timing is a lot of it too.
Know your audience. Bringing a super technical discussion to me and asking me to make a purchase decision is not going to work. You'd be much better off starting with my technical team for that. Talk to me about strategy, where we're going. That's much more likely to get results.
Love it. I'm going to stay with you. Last thing. One sentence. How do we make this better?
Be present. Be there. We have to make it different. We have to make it better. Waiting for somebody else is not going to work.
Sonya.
Focus on it's not me, it's we.
Is be intentional. It's not going to happen by accident. We have to be intentional. That's why we keep talking about it.
Love it. Love it. Ladies, so such a privilege, to sit and have this conversation with you. thank you so much for being here on the show. I think we've honestly kind of broken some new ground here. So it's been such an honor to sit with you guys and have this frank conversation. So hopefully our audience will be able to benefit from it. Colleagues and friends, I renew the call. It is time to professionalize the role of the CISO. In the meantime, I wish you health, happiness, and success on your journey in becoming the professional CISO. Let's do this.
We're professionalizing the CISO role, so please subscribe to the Professional CISO podcast.